So just going back quite a few years now, but it was just interesting. It's just sometimes you just things stay in your mind. You remember these stories. I was working with a guy, and he had gotten to a place over a period of years that he was binging on the weekends quite extremely on alcohol, on cocaine, and then kind of towards the end calming it down with benzodiazepines. Obviously, he'd start out more recreational, and then he would just use it recreationally and then use it, by himself on the weekend. And now it was beginning to seep into the week that he might on a Wednesday need to do a little something. So obviously he was quite concerned. It was just very compulsive use. He had been using like that for, I think good 6 months, which is, the money, the impact on him, feeling drained going into work and so on. There's many negative impacts, but also the scary idea that it's going to get worse. So what do you do with that, So we just had a chat, just talking it through, and bit of a sense of humor. I remember during that session, just relaxing it, because this would have been the first time he'd ever opened up to anybody about it, and you've got to appreciate that. Sometimes for you hearing about it, okay, it's another client, but for them, you got to appreciate they've never talked to anybody about this before. So it's just that in itself is a big deal. That's a movement, and just letting them know that you've done the right thing, done something good. Connect them with support, talking about it. That's really important. Is a key to it. And we're just going to add a few things to this. And just your commitment to see this process through and to keep coming is the key. So then I said, after listening, you're listening, understand it, setting a few things up. And then we said, well, and he knew it as well. We need a bit of a plan. We need to start working on this. He didn't want to just come and just have somebody listen. He wanted some serious plans. He didn't have no idea how to change this. And I said, well, let's just, from what he had told me, we kind of came up with some ideas that I shared with him. Because in a way, it's my job to help him come up. I come up with these plans all the time. So working with him, using some of his ideas, but just giving him some new stuff that he wouldn't have thought of or been aware of. He didn't know where to start. So I came up with a plan. And again, I'm checking in with him. Do we need to adjust this? Does this going to work? Does this make sense to you? Because the plan has to be something that's engaging and meaningful to them. So I just said, look, we need to occupy your weekends. And we just need to put down a planner, hour to hour, what you're doing. And he said, okay. Because, he had a job. He was pretty organized. He was, he had the skills to organize things like that. Just write it down every hour, what you're going to do. And just fill it up with activities like go for a cycle, watch your favorite TV show, prepare a meal, eat the meal, go and do a bit of shopping, right? And then he said, look, if I can get to 9 o'clock, I'm not going to use after 9. Cool. So that was the plan. So like Fridays, you get home from work, get home 6. So he's only got 3 hours there. Saturday, then he's got quite a day, and Sunday as well to try and do this with. Call a friend, go for a walk, go to the park, all kinds of stuff, fill it up. So that was the first thing. And he was quite happy with that. It was like a very, we're going to do some work on this, Then we talked a bit about cravings, and I began to explaining to him that you can develop skills to manage cravings, which, obviously, how would he know that, So we just said, let's just start off with one. Look, if you're having a craving, just say to yourself, if I am going to use, I'm just going to wait 30 minutes. And then if it's 30 minutes, you can wait another 30 minutes. Okay. And that was just the idea of just, instead of saying no, just delay it for a period of time, just to get him started off with this idea of managing cravings, and then we'd explore more. But obviously it was just one session. There's, it's just, it doesn't make sense to give a guy 20 different ways to deal with cravings. It's like, let's just start off by learning about this, and we'll develop it as a theme in further sessions. So that was cravings. So another thing then was to reward himself on the weekend with the money he saved. Go buy some nice clothes, maybe buy a nice, go for a nice meal, a nice takeout, something where he didn't feel he was at risk of using anyway. So go to the movies, to reward himself. So that was the third part of the plan. And then the other one is if he did use, which is quite possible when you're starting off, it's quite possible he might use, that he would put a time limit on that and a minimum amount of use. And he said that would take all the fun out of it. And I said, yeah, that's a good, we agreed. We were joking around in the session, that was a good thing, taking all the fun out of it. And then just say, okay, I'm going to use this amount. I'm going to order this much. I'm going to get this much. I'm going to kind of make it awkward. I'm going to come back to the house, and that's all I'm going to have. And then I'm going to use that for an hour. And then I'm going to reset and get back on track. And just putting obstacles in your way for use. And then he came up with this one because the thing is, when you introduce people to this perspective, they start thinking about it in this way, and then they start coming up with ideas too, which is really cool. So he said he was going to once a month add up, keep track of how much he spends on alcohol, cocaine, and benzos, because he was using the alcohol and cocaine together, which of course creates a separate drug. It's very addictive, very powerful. And then to calm down at night, he'd start taking some benzos. So that's like a lot of use, a lot of money. And he said, well, he was just going to keep track of it on a daily basis, what he used. And he said even the idea that he was going to have to face up to how much money he was sickening. So like that was just a deterrent. It was just, so you come up with all these interesting ideas, and just a plan that made sense to him. And that's what you do, is you come up with a plan that makes sense to that person you can start working on. And I said, and we just, you're going to do that. I said, the most important thing is now you have a plan. You're going to do your best to implement that plan. And then we're going to talk about it next week, and we're going to figure out what happened, what changes, what learns, what did you grow, and we're going to develop and improve that plan. So the two key ingredients, now that was the end of the session. Let's just go for it, and we'll check in next week, see where things are at. We'll have another chat, review things. And that was the end of that session. But for me, it points out, I don't have any absolute principles other than that, whatever I'm doing with clients ultimately works, and that we measure that. But I do think, generally speaking, it's good to have a plan, for your recovery from mental health, from addiction, whatever. Just some sort of a plan that makes sense to you, is meaningful, engaging to you. And then it's important that you have somebody you talk that plan over with. That you just somebody like a counselor, like a mentor, whatever. Just somebody who can add some new ideas, who can see some things, you can just process it with them. Those two ingredients are very powerful. Having a plan, having somebody who's kind of wise and sensible and knows the journey, like a companion or a guide in a way. I can't exactly tell you how you're going to get there, but they've walked this path before with several people and will have something to share. Those two things are very powerful. And again, it's not that this plan is magically going to work and fix everything, but it's like now you have a structured approach to dealing with this. And when you have a plan, you can improve a plan. But if you don't have a plan, and you can't really work on improving it, And again, you just have that second piece of magic to it. Somebody you feel good about talking and process developing with. Those two things, very powerful in recovery, So that's just an interesting story. It's proceeded to do quite well. The plan actually worked out pretty well. A few hiccups, a few bumps along the road, a few things added to it down the line. That was just the beginning of that process. And obviously then, as you move on in the sessions and they're abstinent, you're talking about, focusing on those meaningful life goals and developing their well-being and, entering into that kind of more of a conversation. But anyway, that was just a nice first session, really solid, really good, and really practical way to help somebody recover from a very serious binging problem on the weekends that was looking like it was going to spread and going to get worse. And so there you go.